This is The Guardian.
Hello and welcome to The Guardian Football Weekly. Chelsea inflict just Liverpool's third defeat of the season to help them in the race for fifth place, TM. After a couple of months off, Cole Palmer was brilliant, while the Reds began the game at least on a well-deserved beach. The supercomputer says Arsenal have a 99.9% chance of top five still, but defeat at home to Bournemouth with a full-strength side wasn't on the agenda. Newcastle get 3 penalties, but only 1 penalty, as they get a point at Brighton, while Man City beat Wolves on Friday night. We'll do Manchester United and Spurs Europa League games, while saying well done to Brentford and not so well done to West Ham. Permutation Transistor Radio Day in the EFL. Cov and Bristol City make the playoffs. Luton relegated for the second season in a row, and poor Walsall finally won a game and were going up until a deflected 96-minute winner for Bradford, which set 24,000 fans wild at Valley Parade. We'll do all that, congratulate Harry Kane, answer your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, Barry Glendenning, welcome.
Hi, Max.
Hello, Dan Bardell.
Morning.
And good morning, Jonathan Wilson.
Morning, how you doing?
I am very well, thanks for asking. Let's start at Stamford Bridge then. Chelsea 3, Liverpool 1. Very important win for Chelsea. And Barry, Cole Palmer was excellent, and he hasn't been for quite a long time.
Yeah, it was a very important win for Chelsea. I suppose you need to add the caveat that Chelsea could only beat what was in front of them yesterday, and what was in front of them was a Liverpool team with quite a few changes. Well, a new midfield, Endo and Harvey Elliott getting starts and looking a bit rusty from the off. And a Liverpool team that had just won the championship and looked like they weren't really that fussed about what happened yesterday. But Chelsea still had to beat them, did so in fairly comfortable style. And Cole Palmer, as you say, who has been suffering a poor run of form, a fairly dismal run of form, particularly in front of goal recently. He just ran the show. He was absolutely superb. We know how good a player he is. And he finally ended his goal drought, albeit from the penalty spot. But they all count, Max. And
they all count.
A little unlucky not to score another goal that shot from a tight angle that hit the foot of the far post but didn't go in. So I thought he was really good. I thought Roméo Lavia, he makes a huge difference to this Chelsea team when he plays in midfield. I thought Marc Cucurella he's just a horrible man. But he was very good yesterday. I think you said before, he's the kind of guy, you love to have him in your own team. He's just a horrible, horrible man when he's against you. But he kept Mo Salah on a very tight rein. So it was a big win for Chelsea. A fairly half-arsed effort from Liverpool, who quite understandably weren't really on it. They may have been on it for the last week on something else, but they weren't at the races yesterday, which was kind of lucky for Chelsea, but they took full advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of have Cucurella down as, I don't say a horrible man, I think he's a shit, but I mean it in a kind of loving way. I don't mean it in like a nasty way. I just think, I bet he's such a great bloke off the field, but when he's on it, he's so annoying unless he's your player. What did you make of their performance, Wilson?
They have slowly been getting a bit better again the last few weeks. But yeah, I don't know.
God, it sounds like you're really sort of, it's like the season is petering out. We're all petering out, aren't we? Can't help it. There's nothing we can do. It's just the nature of this season. Well, Wilson's petered out. He's finally stopped. This is a marvellous moment for all of us, yes?
I was trying to think of something that Barry hasn't already said. And Lavia coming back is clearly a huge thing. Lavia being there makes Enzo Fernandez look better. Enzo Fernandez took his goal really nicely. Cole Palmer has had this dip. It's probably premature to say he's back, but this is his best performance for a long time. And that little bit of movement in the build-up to the first goal was really good. And he clearly then ran the game. You have you have the centre working well. It makes it easier for people like Madueke out wide. I think Chelsea have always been better this season against teams who play slightly higher against them. What they struggle against is a low block. Madueke is good Neto's good when they've got space to run into. They had some space to run into yesterday. So in a sense, it was set up for them. I mean, that seems odd to say when they're playing against a team who's only lost twice all season. But Chelsea have tended to play well against that type of team, particularly that type of team when, as Arne said, they're just a few percentage points off, have rested a few players. They get the early goals, they can relax. So I think a far bigger game for Chelsea is that game at St James's next Sunday.
I'm trying to think, Barry. And I think you should take this as a great compliment. I don't believe that Wilson's ever said, to be honest, Barry said everything I was going to say. I feel this is a big...
Well, I wouldn't say I said anything particularly revelatory. I just stated the blindingly obvious.
Maybe that's what Wilson
happened to ask me before you asked Wilson.
But maybe that's what Wilson's been doing the whole time, but we've been so in awe. Dan, Wilson is right, isn't he? This game, Chelsea-Newcastle, next weekend is an enormous game. It should be fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's even more difficult for me to have to follow Barry and then Jonathan as well. Two absolute powerhouses on the podcast. I'm not sure that I can add anything.
You've been set up to fail, Dan. You're just in here to make us look good.
Do we need 4 people?
Yeah. Shall I go now?
I'm happy to go back to bed.
We can't all want to leave. We can't all want to leave. Come on, we've got a job to do here. Yes, Dan.
The game next week is huge. Obviously, from my football supporting perspective, I was quite annoyed that Liverpool decided not to take that game massively seriously yesterday because it's going to have a huge impact on who finishes where in the top 5. But Chelsea's fixtures actually, they've got to play Forest as well, haven't they? In the last few games, a few weeks ago, I think I might have even been on here. We were all talking about Chelsea as if. They've not got enough to be in the top 5, but I'm now looking at them and thinking, because of their fixtures and kind of, as Jonathan says, hitting form at the right time, players coming back, I actually now look at it and think they're probably more likely than Villa, more likely than Forest, maybe more likely than Newcastle with the fixtures as well. Chelsea are looking like that they might just do it now, and I'll become the third person to say how important Lavia is. I think when Chelsea went on a good run earlier on in the season, he was in the team and Caicedo played a few games at right back. Sometimes Palmer shifted to the right and Enzo played as more of a number 10, but he does just give that control in there. And I actually think they're a better team with Caicedo playing into right back, stepping into midfield as well. I think it was a really nice tactical setup from Chelsea, albeit Liverpool were not really there.
We're saying next week's game between Newcastle and Chelsea is huge. It could also be quite insignificant if Forest lose tonight
against Palace,
and Villa lose next Saturday. Would that mean it's not huge at all because just a draw would suit both teams?
It's huge now, isn't it? Because those games haven't happened.
Sorry, I don't want to rain on your parade, Max. No. I know we have very little to be enthused about as far as the Premier League is concerned.
It's not my parade. I'm not head of comms for the Premier League.
I'm going to that Newcastle-Chelsea game, and I'm having to stay in the northeast for quite a long time. I was going up next week anyway, so it's good. I'm looking forward to my time in the northeast. But a lot of people had to be persuaded this is a good idea and to release funds to allow this to happen. So let us hope that this is the high noon shootout,
right?
That it might be.
Who's releasing funds? Are you saying like the Guardian?
Well, they got the Guardian to pay.
The Guardian can't do some serious investigative news journalism because we're putting you up in the Hotel du Vin for 5 nights ahead of Newcastle Chelsea.
The Hotel du Vin is actually really inconvenient in Newcastle. It's far too far to the east. It takes ages to get into the city centre. So if they were putting me in a Hotel du Vin, I would kick off about that. It's just not convenient at all.
It's the detail we wanted. I should say, the top below Liverpool, Arsenal have 67, Man City 64, Newcastle 63, Chelsea 63 in 5th, the final Champions League place. Forest and Villa have 60, but Forest obviously played Palace on Monday night. May have happened while you are listening to this. Let's move on to Arsenal-Bournemouth because Arsenal went very strong, Dan. They obviously lost to PSG in the first leg. They put out a full-strength side. Slightly surprised they did. Are you surprised that they did? I mean, the idea, I guess, for Arteta was to seal up a top 5 place, get a good confidence-boosting win. So to put that side out and then lose to Bournemouth is, I would say, as Lars would say, suboptimal.
I was surprised. I didn't think there was any chance that Saka would start the game. I will say, though, you can put out a full-strength team, but players can still have one eye on a game to come. And I do think that's what's happened. I think Arteta's obviously, he's left a couple of people out, but he's gone pretty strong against Bournemouth. But the Arsenal players, obviously, they know they're not going to finish outside the top 5. They'll already be thinking about midweek against Real Madrid. I thought they started okay. Obviously, got the goal.
PSG.
Sorry, what did I say? Real Madrid.
Real Madrid. Yeah, they've already done that one.
Yeah, that's done. They don't need to worry about that one anymore.
Yeah.
I'm in PSG. So they've obviously got one eye on that. Went 1-0 up, but then I think took their foot off the pedal in the second half. If you're a footballer, I imagine you are worried about picking up an injury. Maybe you don't go full throttle. Maybe you're not playing full intensity. But in the end, I thought Bournemouth were good value for the 3 points. And the set piece coach at Arsenal, who we spoke much about on this show, got out set pieced by Bournemouth, didn't he? Two set piece goals. You count a throw-in goal as a set piece goal, can't you?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, out set pieced.
Yeah, and who doesn't love a League Two long throw into the box, Wilson, for a goal at the highest level?
Well, yes, and Bournemouth's first goal against Arsenal at the Vitality was also a set piece. So Bournemouth have got Arsenal on set piece toast this season.
Right, I see.
Can you imagine if you and Nicolas Javert? Can you imagine watching that Barcelona Inter game, looking at that Barcelona defence and thinking, Christ, if we get to this final, we will score 6, 8, 10 goals. This is too easy for me. This is an insult to my craft. It's too easy to score set pieces against Barcelona. So maybe that's sort of distracted him. He's salivating at the thought of riches to come.
But maybe I wonder if Nicolas Javert is like the attacking set pieces. That's when they step into the technical area. When it's defending a set piece, does he sort of like not really focus on that?
Possibly, I don't know. I mean, maybe as we get more and more specialised, maybe you have attacking set piece coaches, left-sided set piece coaches. Yeah. I don't know how precise it's going to become as backroom staffs get bigger and bigger.
Did Liverpool have a throw-in coach at one point?
Yeah, they did, and actually it was quite interesting. Like the discussion about it was obviously the sort of Keys and Gray was like absolutely like crying with laughter at the idea, but actually the idea that you are actually when a throw-in is taking place, you're sort of at a disadvantage on the pitch. It was quite interesting because you are one man down because you've got a guy holding the ball.
Well, it's also like how many throw-ins do you have in a game? Like lots, right? Yeah. I don't know, 30 a game. I actually don't know, but it's clearly more than you have corners. So if you've got somebody to specialise on corners, there's a lot more throw-ins. So it makes sense that you make sure you get them as right as you can.
If I was the throwing coach, I would just be saying, hit the line. I'd see the thrower turn inside. I'd say, no, I'd be yelling, no, hit the line, play the percentages. Interesting that PSG actually rested everybody, even Donnarumma pretty much. They lost 2-1 to Liam Rosenior Strasbourg, but they should be fresher. Big talking point was Evan Nielsen's winner, Barry. Was it a handball? Wasn't it? Ian Wright said, that's definitely a handball. Joe Hart said, it's not a handball. Where do you stand?
I stand directly equidistant from Joe Hart and Ian Wright as far as I don't know. I really don't. But it might have been. I watched it quite a few times. I couldn't decide one way or the other. What I would say is Martin Odegaard had no business letting Evan Nielsen outmuscle him like that to get to the ball. Ultimately, this result almost certainly won't matter to Arsenal, but Odegaard's performance was a huge source of concern, and he didn't play well against PSG either. This game is sort of symptomatic of Arsenal's season, going into a winning position, dropping points. I think it's the 10th time they've done it. They've lost 21 points from winning positions. Obviously, you're probably going to lose some points from winning positions, but 21 is quite a lot of points. And some Arsenal players just seem reluctant to shoot or take chances, presentable chances, rather than preferring instead to shift the responsibility elsewhere. So it wasn't a great game to prepare for the PSG match, but they might do better against the French side. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, they might. I have a friend, Ben, who hates football, has no interest in football, but he once heard someone at a party saying, the thing about Arsenal is they just try and walk it in. So whenever football comes up, he just says it. And it was nice and nostalgic, I thought, for them to try and do that again today, at the weekend. So very Wenger, very late Wenger, actually sort of the entire Wenger regime. I just wonder, Wilson, we've got through this Arsenal chat so far without you talking about a mental fragility, which has in the past inflamed people. But, is this an example of that with Arsenal? And do you what hope do you give them for the PSG game? They are only a goal down.
Yeah, they're only a goal behind. I think if 10 times in 35 league games you're going ahead and not winning the game, I mean, it doesn't really matter what you call that, whether you call that a mental fragility or, I mean, I'm not really sure what other words you'd find for it, but it's a problem, right? It's a thing that needs addressing. You can't win the league by going ahead in 10 games and then not winning the 21 points you should do from those, or you could do from those games. And Barry's right, there will be a handful of games, but it should be 3 or 4. It shouldn't be 10. Mm-hmm. And you contrast that with Liverpool, who 13 times this season have improved the results in the second half. So they've gone from a draw to a win or a defeat to either a draw or a win. And that basically is the difference between the two sides this season. So it's something that Arsenal need to address. I sort of feel this goes right back to the maybe even the mid-Wenger days, certainly the late Wenger days. But Arsenal have this capacity to just make things hard for themselves for no reason. So why did PSG get the goal they did in the first leg? It's because there's nobody in that central area who could have stopped the ball out to Dembele. And then when the attack develops, Rice comes across to the crowd, Skelly to double up on him as Lewis Skelly goes over, but fair enough. And you see 4 times Rice looks over his left shoulder at Dembele at the edge of the box. Now, I don't know if he shouts or not, you can't tell that. But either he should be shouting, or anyway, somebody should be filling in. I think Martinelli's the one who should slide across, and they don't. But the reason this doesn't happen is because it's unnatural to those players, because Partey, who should be doing that job, isn't there. And you might say that if Jorginho had been fit, he'd have played. I suspect he wouldn't, but a season ago, maybe he'd have played. But Jorginho's not fit, so it's Partey not being there. Why is Partey not being there? Why is Partey not there? Because he got a daft yellow card 5 minutes from the end of the previous game for the game against Real Madrid. So it's entirely a self-inflicted wound. They just do daft things and make things harder for themselves. Under Wenger, they had this habit of playing really well in European games once they were already 2 or 3-0 down. And then they come away from it going, oh yeah, they actually played quite well there. Yeah, but the first half hour of the game or the first leg of the game, it was as if they had to get themselves in a position where it was impossible to win before they could be sort of released. That they had to sort of destroy their own chances first. And there's a sense, I think, that legacy goes on. So I don't really care what you call it, but that is a problem, and they have not addressed it, and it's been a problem there for 15 years.
I mean, I'm already looking ahead to the start of next season when we do our predictions for the Premier League, over 2 pods. And I was thinking, God, it's going to be really tough. Really, really particularly difficult. But the only things I'd put the farm on already are that Crystal Palace will finish 12th and Arsenal will not win the league next season. Like, take it to the bank.
And just Tottenham to come second. I think that's what I had them this year. Anyway, look, that'll do for part 1. Part 2 will begin with Newcastle's draw at Brighton. Welcome to part 2 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So the race for 5th continued. Brighton 1, Newcastle 1. Newcastle needed a last-minute penalty. What did you make of this one, Dan?
Yeah, it was a particularly good day for VAR. We don't often talk about VAR having great days. Obviously, then Wayne Rooney said on Match of the Day too that it wasn't a great day for the ref. But I thought all the penalty decisions, all 3 of them, were absolutely spot on. Still find Brighton a very, very strange team to watch. I don't know whether Brighton fans would be happy with their season or not. I'm not sure they're going to get into Europe, so they're looking at finishing 9th or 10th. I just think across the second half of the season, they've been, I don't know what I quite mean by this, but a little bit stodgy. I've not enjoyed watching them when I've watched them. I thought Minter had a good game, as he did last time they played against his old team, Newcastle, as well. Strange goal celebration. I didn't really understand the message.
Yes. What was it? A sort of non-celebration celebration.
I was really confused by it.
It had everything. Yeah, had everything.
Well, he scored against Newcastle earlier this season.
In the Cup at St James's, 5th round of the Cup.
Yeah, in the Cup. And he very pointedly didn't celebrate, despite never having actually played a minute for Newcastle, as far as I'm aware. And then this one seemed to start as a non-celebration celebration. I think he might have got some grief from the away end. And then he suddenly changed his mind and kind of went, fuck you. I'm going to celebrate after all. But that was my read, but I could be wrong.
He's a celebrations coach. It's difficult. Someone should be able to come out after the game and explain that to me. He did look frustrated, though, didn't he? Then Welbeck was desperate for him to get away from there as well.
Yeah. I don't know what Ayari is doing for the penalty that was a penalty, Wilson.
No. I mean, I was at this game, and yeah, it's no reason for his hand to be away from his body as it is. And then I guess it's an instinct, but he does sort of flinch towards the ball. So I think Dan's right, and this is what they showed on Match for Day 2. The 3 Newcastle penalty decisions, they were all correct, and Eddie Howe was perfectly happy that the first 2 shouldn't have been penalties. That the one on Gordon was fractionally outside the box. Willock then, let's be kind and say, he anticipates a contact and goes down over the top of contact, which isn't actually there. But what he didn't show on Match of Day 2, and what Fabian Hertzler was, I think, rightly sort of irritated by, is Tonali goes through the back of Matt O'Reilly. It must have been between the second and third Newcastle appeals.
Where he sort of comes across, O'Reilly moves his body across. So I think the VAR said there wasn't enough in it. But
I mean, I would say it was very similar to the one that Casemiro got the penalty for against Lyon in the Europa League.
Yeah, true.
It just, look, in real time, didn't really notice it. But when you see the replay, Tonali kicks him on the back of the heel. So, it wouldn't be an issue if VAR didn't exist, but VAR does exist. And you think, well, I'm not really sure how you look at that and say that Tonali hasn't kicked him, because he has. But having said that, Newcastle were much a better side in the second half. And I think were well worth at least a point.
Yeah, though, I mean, it was a shame that the handball was given just because Verbruggen made an absolutely amazing save from Callum Wilson that meant absolutely nothing. And then when he conceded the penalty, some absolutely brilliant goalkeeper holding onto the ball, attackers trying to get the ball, one of my favourite bits of football. But
this is another problem VAR's created. Does anyone understand the advantage law anymore? Because if the advantage is played, which presumably it was for Callum Wilson to have that header, can you then go back and say, he's missed it, so we're going to give the penalty? Because in the old days, I'm pretty sure that once play's been waved on, it keeps going.
Oh, we miss the old days, don't we, Wilson?
I couldn't find, trying to find this morning, I couldn't find the football ruling for this, but in hockey, and unless the law's changed since I stopped playing hockey, the law was, as an umpire, you played on. In hockey, you have to sort of gesture to show you're playing the advantage. And once a shot has been taken, the advantage has ceased. I'm not saying necessarily it's the same law, but all I'm saying is in hockey, that would not have been a penalty.
I mean, there is a risk in just going down other sports. What about wrestling? How does this work? What if Verbruggen is hit by a chair by the Undertaker? Do we play on? I don't know. Anyway, it does set up that Chelsea-Newcastle game at the moment as huge, Barry. On Saturday, Aston Villa beat Fulham 1-0. Dan, you were there. Must win. You just about did enough.
You know what? I wasn't there. I've missed the last 2 home games due to wedding-related activity. I've watched 90 minutes of them both, watched them live, but I was not there, which is fine. I'm happy to.
How long's your wedding? What sort of wedding is this? How long?
Like an Indian wedding.
I had a small wedding 2 weeks ago, like a family wedding, and then kind of had a party this weekend. So
okay,
it
nice.
was they both fell on Villa home games.
Right,
I did know this was the case that Villa were playing when I organised it, but I kept thinking that they might get moved for TV and shifted the other day, and then.
But also, I thought it was a 12:30 kickoff.
It was, but their party started early because there was stuff to do, and there was kind of a mini ceremony kind of thing beforehand and a few speeches. So I didn't want to be rushing and cutting it fine and get in trouble, so I made the decision not to go. But.
Is that it for weddings now? Is that?
Yeah, I'm done now.
Have you got any more? Okay,
I'm done now.
Okay. I mean, we have noticed that interestingly, since you got married, Aston Villa's form has fallen off a cliff. We don't know if they're related. But look, Yuri Tielemans scored the goal. There was one moment when he just did this amazing turn, this beautiful through ball as well. He has been brilliant for you this season, hasn't he?
Yeah, he is. I always liked him when he was at Leicester, but I can obviously acknowledge his last season at Leicester wasn't brilliant, and Villa got a little bit laughed at by the Leicester fans when they picked him up on obviously quite high wages because he was a free transfer signing at the end of his contract. Had a little bit of a bitty season last time round, but has become, as John McGinn said after the game, Villa's best and most important player. He's just been ultra consistent for the entirety of the season. He's played over 50 games. He never seems to run out of energy. For a player who was labelled as lazy and couldn't get round the pitch, that is not what I see in an Aston Villa shirt at all. He's a wonderful player on the ball, the way he manipulates the ball and can wriggle into space. Lovely technique. People thought Villa might struggle a little bit without Douglas Luiz, who was obviously a really big player for them last season, but to have replaced from within with Youri Tielemans, Villa spent 50 million on Onana to replace Douglas Luiz, but it's Tielemans who's ended up being Douglas Luiz's replacement, and actually, take away goals because Luiz took a lot of penalties. Other than that, Tielemans has been an upgrade in every single way, and Villa haven't missed Douglas Luiz at all, and he was wonderful again on Saturday, and genuinely, he's been one of the best central midfielders in the league this season.
The highlight, Barry, for both of us was Unai Emery getting incredibly cross with Ezri Konsa.
Yeah, Ezri Konsa lost the ball to Raul Jimenez, who I think might have fouled him, but anyway, he lost the ball. Jimenez played it wide to Alex Iwobi, who crossed for Harry Wilson, who wasn't able to beat Emi Martinez, but it was a decent chance. And Unai Emery really spectacularly lost the plot with Konsa for losing the ball, and Konsa was not impressed and gave him both barrels back. But Emery was gesticulating so furiously. I was genuinely concerned he might dislocate one or both shoulders. Who was that goalkeeper who famously dislocated his jaw while shouting at his defenders? Alex Stepney or someone. Yeah, I thought, Emery might dislocate a shoulder here, because he really, really lost it.
He really did.
And then he made gesture to the bench, and I thought, Konsa's going off now. But he stayed on the pitch. He took off 3 other people, I think. But you can't fault his spirit and enthusiasm,
passion.
I suppose.
I mean, as we said on the radio yesterday, Baz, it's a strange line of work where this is completely justifiable behaviour. But just imagine if anyone's boss just in an office started doing that. It's completely ridiculous. Wilson, Villa have got Bournemouth, then Spurs and Man United, who presumably will rest all their players. It's sort of like a dream last 2 matches.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of surprised by the Opta Supercomputer giving Villa only a 13% chance. So I know that of getting into the top 5.
Isn't the Opta supercomputer, with all due respect, completely stupid and gets an awful lot wrong?
I know that's what football is, but it just changes on a weekly basis. Nothing fancy about it. I can sit here and say, well, Chelsea have got more chance of qualifying for the Champions League now because of the way the results have gone this week, and I don't think it's that clever.
Do you think if it wasn't called Super, we just wouldn't be that impressed? But if they call it the supercomputer, we think it must be this extraordinary thing. Anyway, you are, however useless the supercomputer is, Wilson, you question its Villa logic.
Just think that, okay, I know they're 3 points behind, and we could be, if Forest win tonight, they'd be 3 points behind 3 sides. But if they win at Bournemouth, and Bournemouth's form has been iffy, and Villa's form, okay, the 2 games before the Fulham game, they'd lost. They were pretty poor in the cup semi-final. But if they get back to the way they were playing before that, they should beat Bournemouth, and then they'll be gifted 6 points on a platter for the last 2 games of the season. So that's definitely how football works, and that puts a lot of pressure on other teams, some of whom are playing each other. So I don't know, 13%. My gut says low. I think it should be a bit higher than that.
Raise it, supercomputer. Man City beat Wolves 1-0. Kevin De Bruyne scoring the only goal. It's on Friday night. Afterwards, he said, I don't know about the future. I've shown I can still play here. Otherwise, I don't do what I do these last 4 or 5 weeks. A lot of teammates have spoken to me. They are sad also that I have to go. It goes like this in life, but the way I'm performing is the way I should be. Can you see him staying in the Premier League, Baz?
I think he could easily do a job for a quite good Premier League team. I'd say possibly for reasons that aren't necessarily to do with football, he might go elsewhere. Family reasons. I don't think he's the kind of player, like someone told me over the weekend, and I find this difficult to believe, but it might be true, that Jamie Vardy has said he doesn't want to play in the Championship because he doesn't want to play against Leicester, which seems a bit dim, or not daft to me, but I can't see Kevin De Bruyne having any compunction about playing against City. In fact, I think if they let him go and he signed for another Premier League team, he'd absolutely relish the prospect of playing against City and playing very well against City and hopefully beating them. I don't think there'll be any kind of celebrations going on there. I could be completely wrong. It's just a hunch. But I suspect he probably won't sign for another Premier League team. I reckon there'll be a lot of interest in him from Premier League teams.
That's for sure. Look, Wolves had a few chances early on in this game. So, it wasn't, another win for City. They're 9 unbeaten. 4 points clear of Forest in 6th, having played a game more.
I thought Wolves were the better team in this game, actually. But
that ball across the goal in the first half was one of the worst pieces of attacking play I think I've ever seen in my life.
Oh yeah, who was it? I can't. Was it? Was Manetzi? Was he on the end of it?
Which way around
was he playing the pass? I can't remember.
Bellegarde crossed for Manetzi, but
it was painful to watch.
Yeah. Well, he should have played it so much earlier, shouldn't he? But yeah, you're right. Wolves did play really, really well in this game. A bit unlucky. That's the end of their winning run. We have mentioned Palace Forest tonight. Almost feel like we've built it up to be the most important football match in the history of the game, but there it is. We'll talk about it on Wednesday after the Champions League semi-final on Tuesday. Yes,
there was also, Max, the Premier League. You know the way Seb talks about you stay up or you win the league, those Saturday 3:00 games that no one's really watching. Well, the game like nobody was watching was Forest Brentford on
of course,
Thursday night. And Brentford showed how to beat Forest. And it's just to hoy long balls into the box and score 2 goals.
Yeah, they did, didn't they?
Job done.
Look, we'll get to their victory over Manchester United in a second. While we're on Palace, who play Forest, Eberechi Eze won a celebrity chess tournament this week. Chess.com said that Eze showed that he's as good at defending as he is attacking, taking advantage of Sapnap, who was the opposition player, who I presume is an influencer of some kind. Could be a singer. I don't know. Could be a celebrity chef. I don't know. He's not on my radar, but, good luck to you, Sapnap. Missed a key attacking idea, which led to unfortunate brain fart and peace blunder, which Eberechi Eze pounced upon. I think he won like 20 grand or something. So well done, Eberechi. He only started playing in 2023 when Michael Elise started teaching him. Anyway, Brentford followed up that win with another win, which means they are in the hunt now for this Conference League place. As low as 10th could get a place in the Conference League, depending on who finishes where and who wins the FA Cup, etc. They beat Manchester United 4-3. Very rotated Manchester United side, understandably, because they have the second leg against Athletic Bilbao on Thursday. They're 3 up. We'll get to that in a second. But Wilson, this Schade, Wissa and Mbeumo combination is really great for Brentford. And like it would, we sort of touched on it on Thursday, but if they got into Europe, I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're the first club this season to have 3 different players all get to 10 goals, aren't they? Which is, those 3, Schade, Wissa and Mbeumo. It'd be great if they got into Europe. And I think there'd be a club who'd absolutely relish being, whether it's Conference League, I mean, I guess Europa League probably is beyond them, but even if it's a Conference League, it's a European campaign, and we just haven't experienced that. And I sort of feel that's what the Conference League is for. It's not for Chelsea to sort of, in a slightly bored, dismissive way, hammer a load of teams you've never heard of by 4 or 5 goals. It's meant to be for the bigger teams from the smaller nations and the smaller teams from the bigger nations, and that's what makes it fun. That's what made West Ham's run in the competition fun. I really hope that the Premier League team who is in that competition is a Brentford or a Bournemouth. Maybe, I mean, I know Brighton have recent European experience, but a club that's not bored of Europe, a club that doesn't matter who they're playing away, their fans will make a real effort to go on the grounds that they. Yeah, who knows when they next have the opportunity to do that.
Totally agree. And actually, although I do think when they set up the Conference League, the whole aim was it to get Christopher and Nkunku some minutes. But, you're absolutely right on that. Look, regards to Manchester United, great shame that Luke Shaw didn't score an own goal after a minute. Felt a bit for them that De Ligt was down when Schade scored, but, that happens in the game. But we should talk about Thursday night. This victory on Thursday night against Bilbao, none of us predicted it. 3-0. They were under the cosh. Casemiro scored. The red card changes things, obviously. But even still, to go there and get such a convincing lead into the second leg is enormous for them.
Yeah, obviously the perfect first leg away from home. I don't see a way that Manchester United throw this away at Old Trafford with a fan base that will be totally up for it. And obviously their strongest team, which isn't what we saw them do this weekend against Brentford. It's obviously huge for Spurs as well. Their result, I do think there's some caveats to their result more so than Manchester United. It's full focus on the Europa League, isn't it now? They're not going to be too concerned with what happens to them in the Premier League. But I don't think many people would have predicted them to go to Bilbao and win in such a convincing manner. Some of their historic big names really turned up and put in stellar displays in the Basque Country. So yeah, credit to them. It's not easy to go away from home in Europe and pull off a result like that, even if it is against 10 men. So they've put themselves in a wonderful position for that second leg, and frighteningly have a massive shot at getting Champions League football next season.
Harry Maguire on the wing was something to behold, wasn't it? He did really, really well. You were saying before we came on air, wasn't it? If Manchester United win this Europa League, just sort of the sort of madness of their fortunate FA Cup run, and then this run that has had some ridiculous games as well, as a way of qualifying for the Champions League over 2 years, is sort of ridiculous.
Oh, completely. I mean, if you think of the quarterfinal of the FA Cup when they beat Liverpool 4-3 in what was one of the most bonkers games I think I've ever seen. Ahmed Diallo scores the winner in extra time, but they ended up with Anthony playing at left back in that game, Bruno Fernandes playing at the back of midfield. Now they're playing Harry Maguire on the right wing. It's been one of those runs that makes you think, or even the Coventry semi-final when the 3-0 lead overturned, the very tight offside, the Lyon game, obviously. I mean, I know that they've actually played pretty well in Europe this season. I mean, Lyon, they were clearly very fortunate, but they're the only unbeaten side still in Europe this season, and I guess they deserve credit for that. But yeah, this would have been one of the weirder runs to win a competition if they do win it. And even that game against Athletic, first 20 minutes, you were watching that going, Christ, they're so slow. Athletic are absolutely ripping them apart here. Yeah. And then Casemiro, I think, has actually come back into form the last month, 6 weeks or so, and was key to that comeback against Lyon. Yeah, he plays really well, gets the goal, and then obviously the red card changes everything. That United Spurs game, if Spurs do get there, and I think A, it's Spurs, B, Glimt away is difficult on the artificial pitch. Their home record is much, much better than their away record. But if it is Spurs United in the final,
there is no way Tottenham win that game. There's just no way. Even though they've beaten them 3 times this season, there's not one Spurs fan that would give them a hope. They would go with hope, but they would just know the muscle memory of Manchester United, who can win things when they're shit. And Tottenham can't win things when they're good. Like, this is just an absolute disaster for Tottenham.
But that, plus Ange in his second season, who always wins a trophy.
Yeah.
And the thought of, 100,000, 120,000 fans descending on Bilbao. And look, it's not what the Europa League's for. The Europa League shouldn't be for fallen, struggling English giants to kind of get a backdoor into the Champions League. But equally, after a pretty anticlimactic end to the Premier League season, it almost feels like we deserve this apocalyptic game. And I'm already booked for it, so I'm delighted.
It's like 2 really old boxers who just shouldn't be fighting anymore. And everyone's just looking away, going, we can't, but we have to watch. I mean, look, you mentioned it, Dan. Like, Spurs were cruising against Bodo Glimt, and then they let in that goal in the 83rd minute. They did play well. Bodo were missing 2 or 3 of their key players who are back, but just letting in that goal, you could just feel the energy just being sucked out of every Tottenham fan, going, fuck.
Yeah, if you're going to that game as a Spurs fan, your levels of anxiety now, just by 1 goal going. I mean, I think Spurs fans would have been quite happy if they'd have been told they were going to win 3-1 before the game, but just the way it's happened after being so comfortable to just ship that goal and have that element of doubt creep in that will no doubt seep into the players as well, I'm sure. I think if I was a Spurs fan, that does worry me, but then like you've all just said, if you get to the final, you're probably worried about that anyway, losing to Manchester United, because Manchester United know how to win trophies, whereas Tottenham don't. So even though they're in a nice position, Tottenham, you don't feel as happy as a Manchester United fan would be feeling, I'd imagine.
Were United 2-0 down to Newport in the Cup? Have I made that up? That happened last season.
No, that did. Yeah. They won 4-2 in the end, didn't they? Yeah. Anthony did the sort of look to the sky, like amazing celebration, like he'd won the World Cup because he just equalised against Newport or something.
At Rodney Parade.
Exactly.
There's not many paths you have in glory have begun 2 goals down at Rodney Parade.
You're right.
By the way, Max, Sapnap is a 24-year-old Texan YouTuber known for his Minecraft content.
Of course.
Okay.
And he bears a striking resemblance, I would say, to Caoimhín Kelleher.
Okay, interesting. I'll check him out. I probably won't, but that's not, with all due respect, Satnap. I just quite time poor at the moment. I don't need to see Minecraft on YouTube. Simon says, any truth in the rumours that due to a shortage of anaesthetics, the NHS is apparently showing the West Ham Spurs game before major operations? Yeah, look, Spurs made 8 changes, but let's talk about West Ham. They were, Barry, bad again. They are bad. I mean, Graham Potter needs time, but when it's not working at West Ham, it does feel a very hard club to turn things around.
They should have won this game. Spurs made 8 changes, and then a very early mistake by Max Kilman, whose move from Wolves to West Ham hasn't been a success, I would say. He couldn't deal with a long ball up the wing, and that Spurs went ahead on the back of that mistake. West Ham, we were talking to Harry Redknapp on the radio yesterday, and he asked, where would West Ham be without Jared Bowen? And it's a pretty good question. They'd probably only be 6 points clear of the relegation zone instead of whatever it is, 14 or 15 they are at the minute. But I presume Graham Potter won't be handed his P45 before he has a chance to use the window, and we'll get a better idea of how he's going to fare at West Ham next season when he's had a chance to bring in some players. But I don't think they should be as bad as they are, because they do have some decent players who just aren't performing for whatever reason.
The big takeaway from that Harry Redknapp interview was that he'd just beaten Tony Pulis at golf and then dropped him home. And when I did ask, how does Tony Pulis play golf? He does just get it launched, He grubbers it down the middle. Of course he does. Just hoys the thing.
Well, isn't that how everyone plays golf?
Well, I think Harry would be a bit more flamboyant, wouldn't he? Little dinks and this and, Seve style. But Tony Pulis is, baseball hat trainers and just get it launched. Anyway, it's interesting, Lucas Paquetá bursting into tears when he got booked. And obviously, we don't know, but you just do wonder how much that betting case is playing on his mind, and hope he is okay.
Well, I would say it's playing on his mind massively, because it could finish his career.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I feel for him, like the details of the case aside, you just, on a totally human level, you just feel for this guy who, if that is the case, and he's thinking these might be my last ever football matches, and we don't know.
Well, the thing is, if the worst should happen, it seems to have been a very small time, ham-fisted operation. No one was making millions of pounds out of this.
No, you're totally right. And we have talked on many occasions about the sort of curiousness of gambling being everywhere within football, and yet the only people who ever seem to get punished are the players.
Maybe he was sad that his last few games of football could be of that standard, playing for West Ham. Because
for West Ham,
honestly, I've put here, there were two teams that just gave up on hating each other and just ended up feeling sorry for one another. It didn't feel like a derby at all, did it?
No, not at all. Anyway, part 3, we'll round off the Premier League and do the EFL. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. Let's rattle through the Premier League games. Then Leicester beat Southampton 2-0. Does this, Barry, change your view on who's the worst ever Premier League team you've ever seen?
Yes. I was trying to think what players from either team will still be in the Premier League next season. El Khanous at Leicester, he's good. He's a class act. And I think Taylor Hallward-Bellis will probably get signed by someone. I don't know how good he is, but he's...
Kyle Walker-Peters might, I think.
Kyle Walker-Peters probably, but...
Aaron Ramsdale will take someone down, no doubt.
Yeah, Ramsdale. Well, there's talk of him possibly going to West Ham, so that would another relegation on his CV. But there's not too many. Not too many.
No. Jamie Vardy scored. Lovely goal, actually. It was their first goal in about 5 years. The commentator says, and that's what they do. I was like, that isn't what they've been doing recently, that's for sure. And then he blew the referee's whistle, which amid great hilarity. I did think, and I don't know if I'm just, becoming Mary Whitehouse, the fact that David Webb looked like he was unconscious sort of took a bit away from the blowing the whistle. But I don't know if I'm doing Vardy a disservice, and he was trying to alert everybody to what was happening. I don't know, Wilson, you look concerned.
No, I was merely thinking that all that remains for Southampton is, assuming they're not going to get any more points this season, what they need to do is not let in 12 goals, and then they have at least been better than Derby in 2008.
Right. Okay, that's good. Any thoughts on the Vardy blowing the whistle thing?
Well, my instinct, and I can't say I've reviewed it from 360 degrees, was that he was blowing the whistle to stop the game, and it was sort of a sort of practical act rather than sort of Gazza showing the ref a yellow card. Well,
type thing.
Okay, I don't think he, it wasn't that he sort of, that he sort of, either he's a terrible actor or he's just blowing the whistle. Yeah. It wasn't like he was doing this great impression of a referee kind of. Okay.
But it was hard to do because the whistle was on the floor, wasn't it? Because the ref was on the floor. But anyway, we hope David Webb is okay. Jordan Ayew did score a nice goal, although the co-coms I had was still groaning about the free kick as the ball went into the back of the net. Leicester's first home win for 6 months there. And then Everton drew 2-2 at Ipswich. Their last 3 p.m. Saturday afternoon kickoff at Goodison. First game there was in 1893. So the balls didn't swerve like that back then, like the one that Dwight McNeil hit. Did it? I mean, that went everywhere, didn't it?
Today is actually the hang on, what year are we in?
2025.
Yeah, so today's the 97th anniversary of Dixie Dean scoring his 60th goal in the 27-8 season. He scored a hat-trick against Arsenal on the final day of the season as Everton won the league, and 60 goals in a season, of course, it broke George Campbell's record of the previous season, and it remains a record.
How do you know that what's alerted you to that this morning?
If you read my weekly newsletter, you'd know I did an On This Day section.
I am subscribed, but I don't think I read it too frequently. But I am subscribed.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'd sort of spoiled the shock for 3:00 this afternoon if it was going to be a surprise.
Wow.
But...
Anyway, look, we'll do a bit more on Everton, no doubt, when they play their last home game. Let's do the EFL then. David says, say Leeds stuff. Yeah, Burnley were top for most of the afternoon. It doesn't really matter who wins the title, but Leeds won it in the last minute at Plymouth. Manor Solomon with a lovely goal. Both finished on 100 points. I mean, the big news coming out of this, Baz, is that Daniel Farke will be staying on, which I think is the right thing.
Well, we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah. I suppose. Well, no, just ethically, in the same way that I think Ange should keep the job if Spurs win the Europa League. I think Daniel Farke, if you win the Championship and go into the Premier League, you shouldn't then get sacked. That's just. I mean, football is silly, but that is really silly.
Well, I was wondering, would you have a case for unfair dismissal if that happened? Could you take them to court for unfair dismissal? Because it does seem quite unfair.
I slightly disagree with this. I mean, obviously on a human level, you don't want to see it. But a former director of a Premier League football club said to me that he was at a club that was promoted in the 90s, and he said he recommended to the board they should sack the manager straight away because he didn't think he had it for the Premiership as it was then. And the board was sort of like, we can't do that. His argument was just because the bloke's good at running a corner shop doesn't mean he can run a multinational. And he argued that even then, running a First Division club and running a Premiership club are totally different jobs. And I sort of do see that argument. And I think in Italy, you have managers who are sort of promotion specialists and regularly will get a team promoted and then don't carry on in Serie A.
Kirbishley, John Dean, Mike Walker. Who are we talking about? You can't divulge.
I think I know. I think I can guess.
Well, let's do that off air later.
Okay, it must be a Sunderland one actually, isn't it? So it's I don't know. It's definitely not Kirbishley, says Charlton fan producer Joel. Sunderland are in the playoffs. How do you reckon they'll get on? They're on an amazing run of form, Wilson.
Yeah, 5 defeats in a row. They scored 3 goals in the last 9. I think there was some logic in resting players and sort of giving some squad players a bit of a chance sort of 6 weeks ago. Last 2 games, they've managed to lose to Oxford and QPR, who, if you look at the table, are nowhere near the top half, despite playing pretty much a full-strength side. So I think... well, look, I don't think Sunderland should come up. I think... I know football isn't easy. I know it doesn't work like this, but this squad, if it went up, would get absolutely torn apart in the Premier League. So there's no point... Okay, and the money would be useful, obviously, but psychologically, I think it'd be a very bad thing to go up and get destroyed. A better thing would be to stay down. We know Tommy Watson's going to Brighton for 11 million. I think almost certainly Joe Bellingham will leave. I think there's a good chance one or both of Dan Neil and Chris Rigg will leave. That would raise, let's say, 60 million. 60 million spent well on a centre forward who could score a goal and a midfielder who could actually tackle would make Sunderland a much stronger squad. They've proved very good at promoting kids from the academy. If they can carry on doing that, I think bringing in at least 2 experienced high-level players would make them a lot stronger. I think the Championship next season will be significantly weaker at its top end than this season. So I'm pretty sure Birmingham and Wrexham will do well coming up from League One. But you look at the sides going down, and I don't think there's anything to be terrified of in that Ipswich squad if they lose Liam Delap and possibly Leif Davis, which I think they will. I think Leicester are dreadful. Southampton, I think they're fortunate to be promoted and haven't got any better. So the better thing will be for Sunderland to stay down and go up next season.
Okay.
I think they'll lose to Coventry on Friday because their record against Coventry is absolutely abysmal. Coventry, of course, relegated them by cheating in 1977, and that remains a psychological block. So no chance of going up. If was that the question? I can't remember now, but yeah.
I can't remember. This answer's been going on for so long. We've basically run out of time. But it was entertaining and interesting in some sense. Bristol City got the last playoff spot, and they will play Sheffield United. They were 2-0 down to Preston. It didn't actually sort of matter in the end, but they took it back to 2-2. The results at the bottom mean that Luton are down 2 relegations in a row, which is a complete disaster. Everyone else picked up at least a point. So they needed a point and they didn't get it. They got hammered 5-3 by West Brom. They were 5-1 down. So they go into League One with Plymouth and Cardiff. We knew that Birmingham and Wrexham were up. Reading missed out on the playoffs. More important than their league position, their sale has been agreed. Rob Kuig has finalised an agreement to buy Reading, ending the controversial / absolutely appalling reign of Dai Yong. So that is very good. It includes Yong shares the stadium and the training ground. Leyton Orient made the final playoff spot. They've been on an absolutely brilliant run, won 6 on the spin. They face Stockport. Charlton Wickham is the other semi-final. We don't need to worry about League One's relegation. League Two, amazing final day. Walsall had gone 13 without a win. They were looking to sneak back into third. They beat Crewe 1-0. It meant that Bradford had to beat Fleetwood. It was 0-0 going into the 97th minute. And then Bradford scored one of the shittest goals. It's an absolute classic League Two goal. Hoy it into the box, stick it in the mixer, comes back onto the edge of the box, miss-hit shot, deflects, goes in. The scenes in Bradford are amazing, the joy, but the scenes in Walsall, which are quite hard to find, but I watched the highlights and I think players are asking fans, what's the score? One of the guys is going, is it still 0-0? Doing that with his hands, and then they find out that they haven't gone up. Anyway, they're in the playoffs, so good luck to them there. Doncaster won League Two, Port Vale is second. The playoffs will be Walsall, Wimbledon, Notts County and Chesterfield. A note on Dean Lewington, who made it on for the final minute of MK Don's game against Swindon, his 917th career game and final appearance for the club. He's been caretaker manager 3 times, so well done to Dean. Jack says, is anyone else enjoying watching Harry Kane get more and more drunk on Instagram? He's won his first trophy. Bayer Leverkusen drew 2-2 with Freiburg yesterday, so Bayern won. He posted quite a few videos, him and Eric Dyer and the rest of the squad singing We Are the Champions. And Barry, honestly, it gave me so much joy to see how happy he is and was last night.
Yeah, I had a feeling you'd be pleased. Look, I don't think anyone would begrudge him his winner's medal, first one of his career, obviously. I think it's kind of fitting he won it while not on the pitch, given his history of costing teams medals by insisting on playing while injured. But he's done really well at Bayern Munich. Scored 44 goals his first season, 36 this. Loads of assists. Hugely popular with the fans. Really, immersed himself in Bavarian culture, particularly last night. And congratulations to Harry.
Yeah, well done, Harry.
You would say, if I'm going to be pernickety just for the sake of it, Max, 1 league medal across the course of 2 seasons is the absolute bare minimum, really, you would expect him to have trousered at this stage.
Right, well, we'll let him know. Bring him back down to earth after his celebrations. Finally, congratulations to London City Lionesses, who became the first fully professional independent women's club to compete in the WSL. They got the point they needed at Birmingham to win the championship. As always, please listen to The Guardian Women's Football Weekly. And finally, all over the internet, people have been asking, could 100 men beat a gorilla? Because we've been through this question already, haven't I? I don't know what the internet said, but David says, could 100 Barrys beat a gorilla? You back your chances, Barry?
No, I don't think so. I think he'd crush one Barry with his giant fists, and then the other 99 Barrys would run away.
I think so. Well, at least your running has been worthwhile then. Anyway, that'll do for today. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Wilson.
Cheers, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barry.
Thanks. Can I just give Robin Cowan a shout out, because I don't know if anyone else noticed, but yesterday, May the 4th, obviously May the 4th be with you.
I did notice.
And then Garnacho had a rasper of a shot. He scored with it, and Robin said that the force was strong with that one, which I presume was connected to the date.
Yeah, very good.
I hadn't her pegged as a Star Wars nerd, but there you go. You learn something new every day.
She'll be at Comic-Con. She'll have a stall at Comic-Con, won't she, next week? Anyway, Football Weekly is produced by Joel Grove. Our executive producer is Phil Maynard. Back on Wednesday.
This is The Guardian.